Hello and welcome to another episode in the Power in Your Story, where I interview entrepreneurs about what has driven them and their journey onto their path and their purpose of what they're doing now. And it never ceases to amaze me how wonderfully rich the tapestry of each individual life is and how unique and varied it is. I'm Marianne, your confident communication expert, helping you speak your truth through story. And today I am delighted to be introducing you to Vanessa Ciano Saracino. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
And this is very exciting because Vanessa and I are newly acquainted. I always love that because then I feel that you guys as my audience, we're sort of having a deep time together rather than a pre-script or anything like that. So always interesting what surprises come up in the conversation. Now, Vanessa is the founder of a Christian design, clothing design company, which is called Tiful. No, Beautiful You. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, which is lovely. And so, just in a nutshell, and we'll come back. What was the idea behind the name?
Actually, I have to give credit to my daughter here. The name came to me very quickly after my divorce and after a couple of years of the healing process and, trying to figure out what my next move or career path would be. Yeah. And it came to me very quickly. And my daughter pointed out that she had come up with that a long time ago. And that is probably why it came up so quickly. So Beautiful is a clothing brand, but it's more an ideology and a foundation of which that clothing, that T-shirt line is based off of, which will introduce some other things. But there will be a junior division of it with my daughter at the helm.
Oh, that is so exciting. So we'll sort of jump in now, and just a little bit of background. So Vanessa, just out of interest, when you were a kid, did you have any idea what you wanted to do?
I did. My mother was a seamstress for Evan Picone. When she migrated here from Italy, I think she had her green card before she became a citizen and was working as a sewer. And wow. I always knew growing up, after she had made all my clothes, my wedding dress, all these things, that I just wanted to do something. And all of my friends said I was very creative, that I always played with my Barbie dolls. And my father was a car dealer. So there, with him being so interested in the car business, became an interest for me. So I became interested in the two, and I chose going to school for fashion design after I accepted a job as a receptionist at Ralph Lauren. So wow. I decided to go for design, and my mother was played such an important role in my college years because she knew how to do everything I was learning. So I had an in-house instructor whenever I needed help.
That is amazing. So did she teach you even when you were a kid to sew?
She didn't. No, she didn't. And I think maybe one of my aunts and uncles bought me a sewing machine when I was a young girl, but I never really knew how to sew until I went to college.
Right. So really, she was a helping hand when you were struggling with this. You might ask your mama, well, could you, am I doing the right thing? So that right. She was there like your mentor.
She was. And she had a little boutique in our hometown, and she had all the industrial sewing machines in the back of her shop where she would do alterations. So when I was going to school, I had access to all the industrial machines at home. So I was able to go there and do all of my work. She had a big table. I was able to do all my patterns on there. I was able to use her machines to sew and to serge all the seams. It was fantastic. It was like a dream come true.
That is amazing. So you started off as a receptionist at Ralph Lauren, and then
I
how
did.
did you migrate?
I just decided I really loved fashion. And I said, I'm going to go to FIT. And I
Okay.
took a gap year after high school. My parents were Italian immigrants. So I didn't really know anything about how to apply to colleges. I just went to high school. I was working my senior year. And then I took a gap year and I got that job and I worked that job. And then I said, I'm going to go to school for design. And I applied to FIT and I actually didn't get in. But what I did is I went continuing ed for a year before I became matriculated into their full-time program.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you sort of didn't give up, really. You
I
kept
didn't.
going.
I didn't. No giving up here.
Oh, that's a wonderful, wonderful lesson for all of us. So once you started your actual training in design, your mother was there as well to help you in that part as well.
He was.
Mm-hmm. And did you enjoy it? Did you know immediately that was it?
I loved it. I loved it. It was hard. It was very hard, but I loved it. I absolutely adored, everything about it. I wanted to make women look beautiful. And so um, I really just enjoyed it so much. It was so intriguing to me, the idea of designing clothes.
Beautiful. And just out of interest, your mother made the clothes. Did she design as well?
While I was young, yes, she did. She would come up with something. She would go to the store and get a pattern and she would change it. She would buy the fabric. She loved, I mean, she still to this day has, loads of fabric and trimming and sewing machines. And
Wow.
so she did a little bit. And then I designed my wedding dress and made the pattern and she made it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So really true inspiration by having it all around you. Now, I looked at some of your details. I know you were pretty successful in your designing career. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I graduated, I got a job. I was working till 2 in the morning. So that was really taking a tough toll. And I got my first real full-time job at a company called Kikomo Limited. And they were a small organization at the time I joined them that sold mostly to Walmart. And I ended up taking an assistant design job there,
Yeah.
and I sketched everything by hand. And when they grew, they created a CAD department where they had Illustrator and Photoshop and a yarn dye plaid program where you could actually design absolutely anything on it. And I actually took a job in that department and I learned how to sketch using Illustrator and I became incredibly good at it.
Mm.
And so I actually ended up going into an associate design role after that. And then I left there and I went to Gloria Vanderbilt, which was fun too.
Wow.
They were a step up and it was a designer brand. And I remember wearing Gloria Vanderbilt when I was a kid. So to work for that company was amazing. And it's within a month of that job that I got my first opportunity to travel overseas. And I got on a plane within a month, actually the owner came in and said, I need somebody to go to Hong Kong to go on a sample trip. And what that meant was you go to the factory or to the office and you monitor everything that's coming in. And we would get 5 or 6 samples for each one of the showrooms
Mm.
per style, per color. So I had to actually oversee all the factories and oversee what was going on there. And I would come home with, 10 big, huge bags full of clothes. And they all needed to be mutilated, and they all, all the trims needed to be right. All the colors needed to be right. They needed to be washed properly. And, that was an amazing experience. And then after that, I went to Bill Blass, and I took a design director role at Bill Blass for a division called Blass Sport. And I actually was in charge of taking this small little $8 million division and, making it grow. And how I did that was all the experience I had gotten from all the other companies, I was able to offer in that role. And I was traveling to India, Dubai, Paris for sample trips, and it was just amazing. It was a dream life, an absolute dream. And after that, I knew I wanted to have children, and I started freelancing, and that's where I freelanced for the likes of Ellie Tahari and Ralph Lauren and some other really big names, Gap, Old Navy, Rebecca Taylor. And I raised my daughter while I was freelancing or consulting.
Amazing. Now, it sounds like as you said, a dream life and also a highly successful career. And because of the success, you were able to freelance with big names. Was there a downside? Did you have to work long hours or?
Yes, I did. So after I had my daughter, I actually consulted with Rebecca Taylor for 7 years. And so my role was to come in and help them when they needed it. So when they were calling me in, they were pretty much calling me in for every waking hour of my life. So I had a small child at the time, and I would leave my house upstate at 6:30 in the morning. And during their crunch times, I would walk in the door at 12 midnight.
Wow.
So it was a very demanding job, but I loved it. I loved it.
Oh, that's good to at least love what the hard work. That's fantastic. Now, at what point in your career then did you get married? Because you mentioned having your marriage and a little daughter.
I got married in 1995, so pretty much I graduated in 1993, and I was married in 1995. So it was very shortly after, while I was working for Kikomo, I was married.
Okay. Now, I know that really your experiences, because I know you're a single mom now, and just your experiences of your marriage and coming out of it have been fundamental in your movement and what you're doing now. So perhaps you could just give us an oversight as to maybe what you were expecting when you were getting married and how it worked out for you.
Well, what I was expecting was the family life. I was expecting, the house, the white picket fence, the dog, the children, the ideal life that I had growing up. And I got that, but we were married 9 years before my daughter was born.
Okay.
And we were building our careers. We were building our empire. And my daughter came into the picture after 18 weeks of bed rest. So I almost gave birth to my daughter with a gestation of 18 weeks, and it wasn't going to look pretty. So I was on bed rest for 18 weeks, and it sort of shifted my perspective on life. And I knew that I still wanted to work, but I wanted to be there for her as well. So freelancing worked out great because I was working maybe 6 months out of the year, and I had 6 months to be with her. But the little twist was when she turned 4 years old, after a trip to Italy, I sent her pictures to all the modeling agencies in Manhattan. And she got a contract with Ford Models at the age of 4.
Oh, right.
So yes, she did. So while I was not working, I was being her momager and taking her into the city for go-sees and for photo shoots. And it was just a dream life because we had it all. We had it all. You could not have asked for, the worlds collided, the universe collided, and
Oh,
just gave us this amazing dream life. Now, I wanted to be a model when I was a kid. So to see my daughter having that opportunity was just I was on cloud nine.
wow.
It was amazing.
How long was she a model for?
She had a contract for 4 years until they closed their children's division.
Mm, mm, mm.
And now she still dabbles in it. She's friends with all of the young kids and all of the parents that we've met through it all. She still walks New York Fashion Week to this day with, some of her friends, and she loves it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Does she design too?
She doesn't, but she probably would like to.
Nice, nice. Follow in your footsteps. So
Exactly.
you're describing what you've used the word a couple of times now, leading the dream life, and yet your marriage did end up in divorce. So what happened to the dream life?
Well, I mean, nothing really comes without a price. So, while I was gone, my in a nutshell, my ex-husband strayed. So, there was, a lot of verbal, mental, emotional abuse. And, while we have forgiven each other, we actually co-parent pretty well. It was just something I was not willing to accept. And I tried, even until the last day, I tried to convince him not to do this because this was not in line with what my belief system was. And he just decided that that was the way it was going to go. And it was heart wrenching for me because you took a beautiful life. You couldn't have asked for any more, and basically threw it all away for nonsense. So it was just something I had to learn to live with and come to terms with. And the journey from there has been incredible because my name being Vanessa, I kind of morphed from the caterpillar to the butterfly, where I'm actually flying solo and doing my own thing and using everything I've ever learned to come into a new found purpose.
You said your name's being Vanessa. Is there a similar meaning of Vanessa that's to do with the
It means
butterfly?
butterfly, actually.
Oh, right. That's amazing, isn't it? I
Yep.
didn't know that. There we go. I've just learned
Yeah.
something. That's fantastic. Were there any little telltale signs, or did it just hit you one day that the marriage wasn't going well?
There were telltale signs the whole duration of the marriage. I mean, I just am a very passionate person. I am very loving. Words are my currency, and I use them generously. And I just was married to somebody who was a complete shell of a man, who was completely empty, and just didn't see the beauty in the world the way I did. And if he couldn't see the beauty in the world, he couldn't see the beauty in me. And so it left me just completely empty, and my daughter as well. So it was time.
Okay, so you also saw the effect on your daughter.
I did.
Now, did you make a joint decision? Who made the decision to divorce?
When it got pretty heavy, I asked for it. I actually asked for a divorce on one of our anniversaries, because I just knew I wasn't going to get my emotional love needs met, where where it was just a loving relationship. It was just completely empty and completely bare. And I remember putting my daughter to bed one night, and she said, "Mommy, um, as much as I would really, really, really be upset, you and Dad really need to get divorced because he doesn't treat you well." So when your 8-year-old's daughter says that she notices that it's just not there, it was heart-wrenching for me.
Wow, what heart-wrenching, and yet what a powerful message. In a sense, I guess there was no turning
Yeah.
back from a comment like that when
Out of the mouths of babes.
the greatest wisdom, and you feel so often that you're hiding everything and protecting them, but they notice, don't they? They sort of cut through and see what's actually happening.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So coming from an Italian, a sort of first line Italian background, parents, how did you feel about divorce?
I hated the idea. I really did. I struggled for years, because when you marry for life, and you're
Yeah.
supposed to build a life, good, bad, good, bad, ugly, and different. So I just was left doing everything, and I was working a very stressful job, and there was no love coming home to anything. So it was really hard, and I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to accept the fact that I would get nowhere
Mm-hmm.
with someone like that. So when I asked for it, I meant it, and he said he wasn't going to give me one. So I said, well, you really don't have a choice. And so it got to a point where he ended up filing. Actually, it was pretty much, he ended up filing as a way to, hurt me and get back at me. And I just said, you know what, that's great. Let's do it, because I wasn't going to live um, like that. I had worked way too hard.
Yeah, yeah. So quite a momentous step for you. So the divorce goes through. Did it take a long time?
2 years.
Is that normal in the US, or a bit longer, or?
It's a bit long. It's a bit long.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel either during or after it? Sort of, where were you sort of on your path?
Completely lost.
Yeah.
Honestly, completely lost. It wasn't until my breakthrough moment that I started to find my way. And every day since then has been a stepping stone into a new direction, which is leaving me more fulfilled than I've ever been in my life.
That's amazing. So very much following the saying sometimes that out of adversity comes healing and growth. So
Yes.
beautiful. So you felt very lost, and you said, you did mention about what changed it, what started to give you the sense of fulfillment.
Actually, to be honest with you, there was a very pivotal person in my life
Mm.
that I wanted in my life, because she was another Christian woman.
Mm-hmm.
And we became friends, and we became fast friends and really good friends. And even though our paths are completely different, she said, hey, listen, she said, I'm doing a challenge with a guy by the name of Pedro Adeo out of California.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you might really like it. And it was a challenge based on the book of Esther in the Bible for such a time as this.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined. It was a free challenge. All you needed to do was give your email and your name, and you were in. And every day for 31 days, he came on and just breathed life into me. And there must have been, I don't want to misquote, but tens of thousands of people in this challenge. And that was in probably March or April of 2020, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been with them ever since, and they've become family. So they have a family room. They have prayer meetings every morning on Zoom at 8 a.m. It just inspired me. He said one thing, and I mentioned it in my book, take what's in your hands. And basically he, breathes life into Christian entrepreneurs in building the kingdom of heaven on earth. And I just was enthralled. And I've been in every challenge since, and with each one have grown and created beautiful and he's doing a challenge now that just completely inspires me based on the book of Proverbs. And it's just amazing. And that is where I am completely fulfilled, that I've been empty for so long, is that word.
That word?
That word, the word of the Bible. And
right.
you know what I mean? That he's bringing that all into, into current life situations. And, it's just been so amazing. I can't even explain.
Beautiful. So giving relevance to the word, giving relevance to how to use kingdom in your entrepreneurial future sounds as if it was very much the right timing through your friend, and very grounding for you, as well as a community and support as well. And so that's what, when did Beautiful You start to grow, emerge?
Well, it's still in its infancy,
Right.
but it is leaps and bounds from where I was.
Yeah.
So Beautiful came to be when I was actually stuck kind of home because my father was battling cancer and my mother had gotten into a car accident. So my daughter and I spent a lot of time at home, and I said, okay, let's do this. Let's come up with something, and let's, work on what we see. And so Beautiful came to be. I started designing T-shirts. I came up with 6, and I had them produced and manufactured. And every design has 4 of them have a biblical scripture to help women come back into their own, so that they use the word of God to know who they are, rather than a man or a friend or a family member, to bring them into their fullness so that they feel good about themselves again. And so I did that, and I came up with inspirational posts every day that I was posting on Instagram and Facebook every morning. And then I was reading a great book by Sarah Young called Jesus Calling, and I would post my interpretation of how each daily devotional was working in my life. Because I've also had an incredible passion for ministry, especially women pastors, which I don't necessarily see me as, but I wanted to bring more joy and more passion into people's lives by bringing the word of God and the scripture to their lives, so that they would know who they are and what God says about them, so that they wouldn't feel so down in feeling, that they needed to fit in with people that weren't their tribe. So that's kind of where it is right now. And now I'm in the process of bringing it a step further.
Beautiful, beautiful. So really, sounds like your mission is to inspire, particularly women, to feel better with themselves, more connected with their purpose, and not to lose hope and faith, even when life inevitably gets you down.
Exactly.
Beautiful, beautiful. And now the T-shirts, I think you might have some to hand just to give us an idea.
Yeah. So I created 2 with my own inspirational quotes.
Yeah.
And the inspirational quotes come to me all hours of the day. So I actually have a little note section on my phone where I actually, type them in whenever they come to me. And
so they're your quotes.
They're my quotes. They come to me based on everything going on, everything I see, everything I've read, everything I've been through. This happens to be one of them.
All right. So read it out to our audience.
It says, walk in your power and let God lead the way.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So there's 2 inspirational quotes by me, and then there's some biblical scripture on the others.
Gosh, And that's fabulous. I should imagine putting on a t-shirt like that with such a fabulous design on it. It tends to make the wearer feel fabulous too.
I have to tell you, I'm wearing one right now and I feel fabulous. I want I want other women to feel fabulous as well. And I think that this does it. And I can actually feel the energy from the statement on the t-shirt
Yes.
that just empowers you. When I'm wearing one of my t-shirts, I feel amazing. I can almost feel an anointing and a strength from God, knowing that, you know, that I'm close and that I'm walking in purpose.
Beautiful. So in a sense, it's sort of your talisman and reminder of the connection and that you're walking the path you're supposed to.
Exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I just love the story about how it all grew and grew, though it has its roots right back to childhood when you wanted to do or move on a little bit even from what your mother was doing, but you were inspired by your mum and doing all that design. And still through that adversity, you've realized that you needed to change it a bit. So the dream life, from what you said, isn't necessarily always, that we perceive is not necessarily always the path we're meant to follow, is it?
Exactly. Exactly. I loved working hard, but I knew I couldn't leave my daughter alone, being a single parent for 16-hour days. It's either you are all in or you're not in both. And I managed it very well prior to this, but in my new situation, I just couldn't. I couldn't see leaving her stranded while I pursued. So I had to find something that I could do that would include her and help her grow in her gifts and help me grow in mine. And so my idea is a mother-daughter duo, is where the Lord is leading me to. I haven't convinced her, but you know, a mother-daughter duo of a fashion line, or you know, challenges and mentorship programs and all of that. So
Oh, that would
we'll
be
see how
awesome.
it goes.
Yes. Well, if it's meant to be, it will happen, whether it's
Exactly.
now or a few milestones down the path, it will happen, won't it? And
Right.
I very much believe that the timing, everything has its own timing, doesn't it? And it fits
Exactly.
into place. So that's exciting. How old was your daughter then when you made that decision that you had to do something at home and change your perspective?
She was just a teenager, 13.
Oh,
You
yes.
know,
So,
I knew I actually held a position at a handbag company where I was designing for them, but between school and having to pick her up when she was sick and having to be there when she couldn't go to school, or being there for homework or taking her to soccer, it was impossible. I needed some more flexibility.
amazing, amazing. I think you've obviously done an amazing job and looking after your parents as well. And it takes a lot of strength to do all of that. So
It
kudos,
does. It
kudos,
does.
kudos to you. Do you all live together?
I moved here, yes, and I just lost my dad a month and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
He lost his battle with cancer a month and a half ago after fighting for probably about 3 years. It was a devastating last couple of years, and that's why I knew that I just couldn't leave them stranded. I wanted to help make my father's last years bearable and to be there for him.
Beautiful, beautiful. So now you're there to put warmth into your mother's life as well. And
Exactly. That's exactly it. Exactly. A little warmth for everybody, and that family love and that bond.
beautiful, beautiful. Well, I just love this story, and guys, I hope you see everybody's story is so different, but it's amazing how, in this case, Vanessa always had a bit of a calling when it came to design, and followed a path that was successful and a very successful career. It was a dream life, but somehow there were aspects that weren't quite right for her. And though the path was rather rough and incredibly challenging, it still gave Vanessa, I guess, that that strength, and rebuilt you in order to follow the path you're doing now. Would you say that's the case?
I would. I would. It
Yeah.
took a long time to navigate and making sense of everything and following the direction that I was being called to, but it's going very well. And I never would have come into this aspect of my life, writing or co-authoring Thriving Beyond Crisis, with being in that marriage. That marriage was not only empty, but it was a place where I was no longer going to grow, where it was just very dead, very uninspiring. So for me, this was my path so that I can build that empire and do what I truly love and grow in my gifts.
Lovely. So I think it's very inspiring for all of us and you guys to be reminded that sometimes the stories of our lives can be really, really painful. And yet Vanessa is an example of how you can come through it. And whether it's God or for you, the universe, there is that ability to hear that guidance, to be in touch with spirit and your intuition and your inner knowing, to take the next step at a time. And what Vanessa's, though she had great success, it was not necessarily overnight healing after the divorce. So it's been one step at a time, which I think is, though painful, it's so powerful to hear your story, because so many people out there, so many of us need to hear that it's one step at a time, and also that you're still exploring other avenues of your whole idea of the movement as well. And that's lovely, because your path is often, and your journey has sort of different stages, doesn't it? So you might, I do hope that you do get your dream of working with your daughter and having a family business. That would be totally awesome. And I look forward to keeping in touch with that. Have you got any words of wisdom or any takeaway you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I would love to. So my number one takeaway is never give up. To always follow your own internal guide. When you know something, just in general, when you know something is not right for you, one of my mentors said, if you need to walk away from anything you do not have the grace to handle. And I just love that, because for me, it was completely exhausting to try to fight what was inevitable. And the path and the direction of my life now is so much better than it had ever been, where there's a balance in my life with everything that means so much to me. And so never give up, and to always do what is in your heart, and to follow that guide, and to be able to discern the two.
That's beautiful. Could you just expand a little bit of what you haven't got the grace to handle? Could you just expand that just quickly?
It's not my quote. So I'm not exactly sure the interpretation of the way they meant it. But for me, the grace to walk away from my marriage because I wasn't prepared. It was exhausting to try to convince somebody that they should be the way I expected them to be. They wanted to take a different path, and I needed to walk away with grace, because it was completely exhausting to try to, other than prayer, to try to change that direction or the direction of that path. So for
Beautiful.
me,
Yeah.
walking away from anything you do not have the grace for.
Beautiful. So in a sense, that's a lovely message for so many of us that have such difficult choices sometimes. And maybe a possibility is, if you don't have the grace to handle the situation you're in and it's too overwhelming, very difficult, and you're not handling it the way you're meant to, I guess, with love and grace, then have the grace to walk away with grace and love. Would that be a possible?
That's exactly it. I mean, I said in my statement, never give up. So walking away doesn't mean giving up.
That's a
walking away means putting yourself first, and to not sacrifice who you are for anything, and to stand true to who you are. So when you don't have the grace and you have to convince people to stay around, it could be friendship, family, marriages. And I'm not saying that I believe in divorce either.
No.
You should absolutely work through whatever it is through prayer, fellowship, and whatever the case may be. But if it is if it's deteriorating your health and your spirit, it isn't worth that sacrifice.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that is a lovely message to end with, to put yourself first in the best possible way, because you have a purpose here on this earth, and also to stay true to yourself. This is so important when you're speaking as well, to speak your truth. And if everything is pulling you in different directions and you're not there, it's very difficult to speak your truth, and therefore it's very difficult to serve your people, even to share your story. So I love that, and I love that way of turning what could have been a very, very disempowering story to what has now become an empowering story through the grace in which you handled it. So that's a lovely lesson for all of us. And I want to thank you guys for watching. I think that there have been some amazing nuggets of gold and lessons in the story that Vanessa has so kindly and passionately shared with us. And remember, I will put contact details, how you can get in touch with Vanessa. And remember that you may have some stories that may be empowering and they may be disempowering. And with little tweaks, I can help you to make a difference so that you can move forward, share your story, reach your audience, because story is powerful. And when you get the right angle, it can power you forward on your journey and your path. So I'll put my contact details as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And thank you, Vanessa. It has been a true privilege to hear your story. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Bye, guys. See you in the next video. Bye.